Okay, I just got a message that it's a go. So I think this is where we begin the conversation. So first, maybe Ishan, we can lower the music. Thank you. First, I wanted to thank you for joining this conversation of the Taubman Public Design Corps, which was a project at the beginning of the summer that was truly something that became a co-creation of students, faculty, and was a response to partnerships with community organizations and arts organizations in Detroit, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti. And it came out of multiple parallel aspirations and moves. And today we're going to, whoever's in their car, if you could mute, that would be great. But it came out of an aspiration to address students who were facing radical change that were inflecting the way we live, work, and learn this summer. Students who had lost their opportunities to participate in normative internships or fellowships or the travel that they had planned, and students that had addressed the question of how they could contribute to the greater good and how they could work pro bono. And as faculty and colleagues at Taubman College, we wanted to support that ambition. And we also wanted to offer students the opportunity to learn in exchange, to really embed themselves in working projects and in partnerships with others, and to benefit from that kind of boots on the ground experience and the inflection of professionals and organizations in the field. And so a group of us partnered with the Ginsberg Center, and we're very delighted that they participated with us, and they lifted this project quickly and ambitiously, just in the nick of time. And the Ginsberg Center offered their expertise about how to talk about, how to begin, how to experiment with questions of community engagement, how to approach this very important aspect of our work, and how to make meaningful projects out of a collaboration that's deep and culturally rooted. So the broad ambitions of this project, of this initiative, were really to broaden design's social impact at a time when it seemed very, very important and continues to seem very important, that we understand that our approaches to design change human relationships. They inflect the way we live, the way we work, and the way we relate to each other. We wanted to offer students skills, architectural skills, design skills, that would illustrate how their spatial intelligence can guide projects by principles of equity and inclusion. We also wanted to strengthen the role of engagement in our pedagogy and in what we offer for students in the curriculum, without necessarily creating a course that would be necessary for students to engage in that work, but something a little bit more light-footed, something a little bit more experimental, and something a little bit more earnest and authentic that was happening with others outside of our discipline. We also wanted to work with community partners and assist them in spatializing and advancing their public missions. So I am absolutely delighted with my colleagues who are here. It's difficult for me to see how many of us are here, but I think if I could give a shout out to Maria Arquero, to Jacob Comerci, to Irene Huang, who were part of this first group of faculty who came to the table to imagine how this might work. And then to the broad network of our colleagues that also stepped up to work as mentors to help students guide and understand the work that was ahead of them. This experiment brought together 6 collaborative projects 6 partners came to the table. We will hear from all of them tonight. It's quite amazing for me to see the breadth of work that emerged from this program. Everything from working on architectural design projects to spatial intelligence having to do with illustrating ways to move forward in the pandemic in a safe and secure way that are health inflected, and diagramming procedures, to creating vivacious and vibrant online experiences for institutions who couldn't open their doors in a normative way, to videography and documentation of organizations and their participants and their members, telling stories, narratives that are important about the human experience and people's relationship to the city of Detroit. All of that happened within 6 weeks of work, so it's quite extraordinary. And all of this happened because of the commitment and the energy of our students, and a kind of fearlessness that became evident in the way that they approached work, gave their time, but also were able to listen and take in from others. So tonight it's a conversation between our faculty, between our students and our community partners, taking yet another moment on Zoom to try to relate to each other in a human way. But also it's a moment of deep gratitude for the participants who took part in this experiment and who illustrated that there is a way forward, in this case without major capital investment, but a huge amount of sweat equity. I wanted to give a warm thank you to some of our faculty participants this summer. Julia McMorrow, Mark Norman, Sharon Haar, who emceed a series of conversations, Ana Marcelo Polares, Gina Reichart, Lars Jungens, Ana Paula Pimentel, Cyrus Piñarroyo. These are just a few of our faculty who stepped forward to assist with this project. And I am infinitely grateful for your time, volunteered to support these efforts. I'm also smitten by our community partners, and I think like talking to them more intimately about the work, about what they contributed to this project, will become self-evident through this evening and this conversation. A little bit about how this evening will roll out. We have grouped the projects into 3 panels, or three quick moving conversations. The first of which is called Spinning Stories, and we'll talk a little bit about the place of narrative and storytelling and identity building in the design work that was produced this summer. Here we'll hear from the Carr Center and SAGE, the organization, and as well as from the mentors and students that participated in the work. We'll watch 2 videos that present the work and then follow those with 20 minutes of conversation about what was learned, the aspirations and the ambitions of the work, the challenges, the pitfalls, and other modes of confession. The second panel will deal with something we've called crossing lines. Of course, we don't have to stick to these, but it's an idea. Speaking with the directors of Shiloh and the Zimbabwe Cultural Center, we'll talk about the blending or the blurring of lines between architecture and art practice, and see what the complexities are and what are the opportunities. And finally, we have a session called Playing It Safe, where Brilliant Detroit and Meals on Wheels will talk about the inflection of our architecture and design and urban design on questions of health, safety, security, and city building. Okay, without further ado, I think I'm getting a text that I have 1 minute for this session. So without further ado, we'll kick off our first session by watching a video produced by students who worked on a project for the Carr Center. Aishan, take it away.
The Virtual Carr Center is an extension of the Carr Center's existing website, serving as an exciting virtual platform for showcasing visual and performing arts, whether live or pre-recorded, and an archive of the various programs the Carr Center hosts. The lobby, the landing page of the site, displays information about the Carr Center and this project's mission. Throughout the site, there are tour guides that narrate the curatorial agenda of each gallery and explain how to interact with the room. Visitors can sign into the guest book and then click on the globe to begin exploring galleries.
The landscape page presents an overview of the website and its different spaces, grounding users within an abstract digital form that seems to be constantly growing. This page highlights the gallery spaces, the performance room, the cafe area, the launch pad, and the 15 East Kirby Street lobby, where visitors begin. The interface invites the user to enter any of the galleries and rooms on their own accord. While a prescribed sequence of rooms is implied, the site promotes exploration and discovery.
Gallery 1 operates with a point-and-click interaction. You can learn more about the featured artist by clicking on the objects or the instruments masked with Detroit murals.
As a continuation of the point-and-click format, Galleries 2 and 3 present a curated selection of artworks from the Carr Center collection in an extravagant context. Clicking on the pointing hands moves the user around and through the rooms. Clicking on the art opens up pages for viewing and learning more about each piece. One major goal of the Carr Center has been to change the preconceptions about how African American art is exhibited and explore the potential of a virtual space to subvert historical tendencies to marginalize these artists.
Gallery 4 provides an overview of multiple display planes where work can be distributed. Clicking on the plus enables a pop-up window with additional information discussing the art or exhibition. Currently displayed is a historical timeline of Black music. The Performance Studio showcases featured performances operating like a theater with a now-playing concept. The aesthetics and detailing of the room were inspired by the Carr Center's ongoing renovation of a historic ballroom into a black box theater.
In the Stars is a 3D exploration gallery with an immersive click-drag experience. You can orbit around the gallery, viewing the artwork from multiple vantage points. An exciting component of this gallery is its augmented reality and virtual reality compatibility.
The cafe is a fun additional gathering space where you can meet and chat live. Here, users can connect, discuss, and participate with others currently on the site. You can also enjoy exterior views of the virtual Carr Center from above. This extension of the Carr Center website embodies its ambitions to elevate African American voices, narratives, and culture through inspiring, entertaining, challenging, and educating across disciplines.
Okay, that's absolutely amazing. And I know everyone wants to talk about it straight up, but against all odds, if it's okay, we're going to watch one more video just so that we can speak about both projects together. I know this is going to be tough, but maybe we can do it. Aishan, take it away.
Short introduction of myself, Cornelius Wilson.
My name is Jim Suchelski. I live in Detroit, Michigan.
Well, I'm Judy Lewis.
My name is Rondo.
I identify as a same gender loving man of African descent. Former board member of SAGE, current contractor with SAGE.
I identify as he, him, his, and I am the board chair of SAGE Metro Detroit.
I am a she, her, and I am the training and education manager for SAGE Metro Detroit, services and advocacy for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and or transgender elders.
I am associated with SAGE through Mr. Wilson. I have been his administrative assistant for years and years and years. When he joined SAGE and put together the program committee, he wanted me to be involved and record the minutes, and so that's how I got involved.
for me, it's been more a matter of something to help build. I like building things. I like growing my garden, making quilts, cooking. I like making things, creating things. So it's been fulfilling for me in that way to see the organization come together and flourish and grow and sort of become, at least the one here in Detroit, the go-to place for anything LGBT seniors.
I think it's a very good organization because they are dealing with LGBTQ seniors or older adults.
The more important aspect is that SAGE is an organization here to be there for the older adult LGBT person and to provide the resources.
So we've only been around as National SAGE, as SAGE Metro Detroit, for 5 years, but we have accomplished a tremendous amount and have gotten some very significant accolades. We're really cool people.
Thank you. And just a quick technical question, Aishan, will we be bringing the panel to the forefront, or will this be a free-for-all where we call on people on different screens? So our panel presenters are integrated into the rest of the conversation, is that correct?
Free-for-all via chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, this is an incredible panel, and I'm going to call on you, even though I can't necessarily see you, but so that we can introduce you to this conversation. We're joined by Chelsea Flowers, who is a curator at the Carr Center. She just raised her hand. I wish we could make her bloom in the Zoom. There, it worked. Oh my God, thank you. That's Chelsea. Is Oliver Ragsdale here, the director of the Carr Center?
He is here. He is here.
Disembodied, but here. Excellent.
Here I am.
Oh, I see you. No, I don't, but I believe you're here. We're also joined by students Harsheen Carr, is Harsheen here, and Tom McCormick, who worked on the Carr Center project. Do you want to say hey?
Hi.
Are you together in one spot? No, you're in two.
No.
Thank you for making it here. And Max Coolidge and Anisha Naik, who worked on the SAGE project.
Hi.
Max, I saw you before also.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. And then we're joined by Jacob Comerci, the one and only, who worked as the mentor for the Carr Center project, and Irene Huang, who worked on the SAGE project. Irene, are you here? Okay, we'll see if Irene pops up. Okay, no. Although we're quite a there's a question.
There we go. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there's a question that we wanted to pose about storytelling and architects and designers. In many ways, both of these projects seem to be telling very sensitive and deep-rooted stories about the culture of the institution, the curation of the projects in the organization, and other aspects of storytelling that emerge from these two videos that we see. The question I had for you is, why not hire, for example, a web developer? What is it about working with a group of architects that's specific and particular to being able to create an online experience, for example, for the Carr Center, for Chelsea and Oliver, that's different from just a web designer? Is there something that emerged that was particular to spatial thinking with the team that you worked with?
Well, I think that this is Oliver speaking, and I'm in a public place, unfortunately, so I have a mask. But hopefully you can understand me. I think that one of the great things was the architects came with an artistic sensitivity. And we found that, and that's clearly an advantage. And while there may be some shortcomings from a programmer standpoint, the vision was much bigger and much grander than I think that we could ever anticipate. And I think the other thing that we had great pride in is when you looked at the screen of the Zoom meetings, you saw a group of people that looked like what we wanted the Carr Center to be about in terms of who it reached. And that was, and that they heard us treated as a client. They listened and responded to our desires and needs.
Thank you. Chelsea, I'm wondering if you wanted to add anything else about, from a curatorial standpoint, what designing the virtual container felt like and how you inflected that design.
Yeah, I mean, so also it's really funny saying curator because it's all so new, so thank you for that lovely title. But I mean, so I think that at least from like a curatorial standpoint, I keep on getting stuck on this notion of spatial intelligence. I think I was in absolute awe of the designers, but I couldn't put my finger on, or I couldn't describe the feeling. But I think just this notion of like the collaboration and like the traveling to the Carr Center to actually see the space. And so just making sure that incorporation of like the physical was also being represented in the virtual, I thought was really, really great. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did it.
Okay, cool.
And I think that the one other thing that was mentioned in the video about the sensitivity of placing the art within the architecture, seeing the African-American art in both a very traditional looking space in gallery 2 and 3, and then seeing the art in the futuristic space of in the space gave us great contrast and ways that you would not traditionally see African-American art in a traditional museum situation.
Yeah. I have a question for Tom and Harsheen, who are out in Zoom world. How did you know that you got the vibe right? How did you come up with that unique combination of futurism, day glow? You know, there's a particular sensibility that you're working with. And was there a lot of adjustment? How did you know you?
Yeah, maybe I can start and then Tom can jump in. But I think we maybe started with the crazy a little bit and then reined it in to make it feel more appropriate almost. I don't know. But I think it was a lot of iterations and continuing to like add things, getting their, because we had weekly meetings with Carr, getting their feedback to see if they thought this worked or didn't. But I think it was the combination of having several people with several different aesthetics, but tying it all together in the end. Before Tom, you can add on to that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about the project from our perspective in terms of like inexperience working on a platform like this. I think like our naivete actually played into it in a positive way. Like we didn't come to the project with a lot of preconceptions about what it would look like. And I think early on, talking as a group, we really were attracted to certain things like, early video game design and like this idea of like a point and click, very simple image to image, sort of illusion of 3D space. And once we sort of made that decision, then we could kind of flesh out the universe a little bit more. And it seemed like it just happened naturally over the course of time, but pretty quickly. Yeah.
Did Oliver accept the monumental goal?
It took some convincing.
I believe that.
I love you too. But let me tell you how I landed. And I've really only landed here in the last 24 hours. I landed at the virtual car center. The car virtual center has its own personality, and a personality very different than the personality of the car center that people have in their minds of what it is. And while the team integrated some physical elements of our current locations, they took us to a place that we wouldn't have gone otherwise. And along with Aaron Falker and Chelsea, with that young 23rd century vision, we're in a place that's very, very different. And that's what makes the project different than any other museum or gallery at this point.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. I'm wondering if we might shift to Jacob. And if you have a text that's been prepared by Angie Perone, who was unable to make it to this conversation, but wanted to share something about the SAGE project that emerged over the summer.
Yeah, happy to read it. Sorry, I'm not a better orator, but it's a really nice statement. So I wanted to make sure it was read. So she says, Sage Metro Detroit is a small organization that provides services and advocacy for LGBTQ older adults. We plan to celebrate this anniversary with several events that highlighted archived stories and voices of our LGBTQ older adults and Sage founders. However, when COVID-19 hit, we had new and increasing urgent needs that stretched our resources and capacity. We had to cancel our public celebrations and events and focus our attention on urgent food supply, social support, and mental health needs. Yet with the work provided by the fabulous students from Taubman College, we were able to brainstorm creative ways to safely support our participants during COVID. We were also able to gather critical stories and voices during a time when connection is especially important. Bama, Anisha, Ariba, Max, Clayton, and Irene exceeded our expectations by far. They interviewed several LGBTQ older adults and produced high-quality videos that we can archive in our records, as well as use in upcoming virtual events and fundraising. We were especially impressed with the attention to detail, concern for the participants, and commitment to the project that each student brought. Our general tagline is this: we refuse to be invisible. These videos help provide more visibility to a population that is often rendered invisible, both inside and outside of the LGBT community. We have already shared the videos at various community meetings and with our SAGE affiliate organizations throughout the country. People are moved by the videos. They tell powerful stories about discrimination, racism, intersectionality, and hope. We need these conversations now more than ever, and this project brought these stories to life. Several people who were interviewed talked about how they cried when they saw the videos. While many have led extraordinary lives, their humility renders their accomplishments invisible to many, including themselves. These interviews and videos provide a glimpse into their lives and let us share and document their stories. We're forever grateful for the contributions of this team, as well as the professionalism of the student. You made a difference, and we are honored to have been able to work with you. It's pretty nice. It's pretty amazing.
That is pretty nice. I'm wondering,
the students.
I'm wondering if Max and Anisha had read this in advance. Are they so this
I had not read this in advance. Angie's gonna make me cry.
Yeah, totally.
You're not filming.
No.
So what specificity of professional experience did you bring to this project that comes from your approach to design practice?
That's a really good question. Something we were conscious of throughout the entire project is our lack of status as technicians. We were not masters of the process or of the art form, really. I think what we brought for SAGE was an extremely high degree of agility. and a cognizance of how to work as a team internally and how to work as a team with them. Vama, who is sort of our commander-in-chief, had an incredible working relationship with Angie Perrone and Cornelius Wilson, who's their current board chair. He's a great guy. He had a really high degree of input on these videos. He's an expert on the subject matter. One of the interviews is of him as well. And what we brought to that was the ability to pivot to what they needed at all points, and the ability to within that pivoting, to adapt to different kinds of art forms. We had an incredibly steep learning curve. Like Anisha and I learned Premiere in like about 2 weeks, and I used a little bit of After Effects and learned more too, and we did all this Zoom recording and all this crazy stuff we never thought we'd have to do. But I think as architects, we're taught to attack visual problems from any direction that makes sense. And that's what we brought to the table here, was the ability to do that.
Yeah, and it was pretty interesting in terms of what we had to do for the older adults, like keeping in mind that they're older adults. Like a lot of things when our first goes were such that we literally got the reaction saying, oh, that looks fuzzy to us. Like we are not comfortable seeing something move on the screen that way. And that's something that we don't really think about, and not just in this, but even in architecture. Like when it comes to like public design, it is really important to think about every aspect of the people who are going to use it. So that sort of got that out. And also about something simple like using these softwares, or like even while taking these videos, it was like, what instructions would you give them about like not to have a backlighting? So we actually had to make like a guideline, sort of a document, which we sent to each of them before the interview. So it was really interesting on what, like, otherwise we are so used to just telling someone to hop on a Zoom interview, but that's not the case with older adults. So that was really humbling to see all of that.
Are these tools that you might find yourself using in your own practice and research in terms of being able to document users of future public space or future designs, and cultivating that kind of empathy and sensitivity for people who occupy space?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we learned, at least I did for sure, learned a lot more about the ways in which people's experiences of visual and physical space can differ, right? What looks good to me on a screen is not what looks good to other people all the time. We had to be sort of rapid response and how we dealt with that and addressed that. It was really, really interesting. Yeah, for sure.
So Max, Anisha, thank you so much. I also,
thank you.
Over and Chelsea, if maybe we could do a plug for the opening of the gallery tomorrow. Are we still here?
We can certainly do that. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we will be hosting a program that will showcase and introduce the public to the CAR Virtual Center from 12 o'clock until about 12:40 or so. And then the center will be open, and we're inviting people to join us in the cafe. After the show, you'll have an opportunity to see the reimagined Rock My Soul, talk to Chelsea, and to explore the center on your own.
Super. Thank you
and then
so much.
Then there's an exhibition in our physical space that speaks to the development process called So Car, So Good. And it features the 6 designers and some of their design work.
Good title.
Yeah, that was Aaron Falker's idea. But yeah, just to kind of reiterate what's happening in the physical gallery, bringing the virtual into physical space. And I just want to reiterate that it's really highlighting the designers' hard work. So it's a celebration of all the designers that helped create this virtual space.
So thank you to everyone in this session for introducing us to this project. You can learn more about these spaces and narratives on a website that we can drop into the chat, so you can uncover a little bit more detail about the thinking and the teams that went into it. Okay, we're about to switch gears. Thank you so much. to our Crossing Lines session with Shiloh and Zimbabwe Cultural Center. Thank you. Yay. So, Ishan, are you ready with Shiloh? This is a mysterious free-for-all. Great. Looks like this video doesn't have sound. So I would—
I don't think it does have sound.
No? Okay. In which case, if Megan, if you're here, if you wanted to just talk right on top of this to introduce the project, that would be fabulous.
Sure. Okay. On the fly. So we worked with Shiloh Arts to create a series of renderings. Our first findings focused on the historical context of where Shiloh is within Detroit. And we took the information that Shiloh offered to us, that they were interested in recreating this building into the sanctuary space for this historical neighborhood, sanctuary space for artist residencies, but also performances, as well as having a education space for use mostly in computer works. So there were a lot of really interesting programs to assimilate into this one building, but mostly it was all about being very welcoming and not being very structurally disruptive, but just a natural part of this neighborhood. So we focused a lot on the front porch, keeping both the historical context of the building as well as opening it up to the neighborhood, as well as recreating a new framing system for this building, which needs some help. We love it. And we also looked at making these flexible spaces so that the rooming system, the open sanctuary space, can be not separated, but that there can be a moving wall system used both for gallery spaces to project films onto, kind of a, you know, it's not to say multi-purpose, but it has a lot of opportunities for uses. And I'll also say it was really great working with Shiloh. We probably got more out of them than they maybe got out of us, but we really enjoyed making these renderings. We hope that, you know, they're put to some good use. We understand that they had a GoFundMe page that hit their goal, so we're just excited to contribute to that ongoing journey.
Thank you. Thanks for stepping up like raw and live. That was really good. Good catch. And the second video in the series comes from the team that worked with the Zimbabwe Cultural Center.
The Zimbabwe Cultural Center of Detroit is in the process of moving from the founder Cheeto Johnson's home to a larger public building in the same neighborhood. As a part of the Taubman Public Design Corps, Transient Collective worked with the community partners Cheeto Johnson and Gina Rager to deliver a pre-schematic package for the Cultural Center. The Cultural Center is a place for the collective where architecture is its organizational structure and art is the instigator for funding. We imagine the space to be a strong, vibrant, and inclusive center that is always being operated on by the collective group that is engaged in its sustainability. This gives us an opportunity to invite new emerging artists to the table who invigorate and reinvent the center with an aggregate of art objects that are integral to the urban plan. From research and conversations, we identified 3 inherent qualities that we wanted to incorporate in our design for the Cultural Center. The idea of aggregation and the tendency for people to form a circle when gathering in a group, something which is very evident in the Zimbabwean huts and public spaces. Working with objects of different scales and uses, we wanted to draw inspiration from the architecture of Zimbabwean villages, which have elements that are sacred and fixed in place, along with functional elements that can be moved around for convenience. Keeping in mind funding and timelines, we approached the schematic design in phases. In phase 1, the priority would be cleaning the shell of the existing building, adding a few architectural components, and making the building usable. In phase 2, a new core which houses all the services and utilities will be constructed. This improves the circulation of the cultural center and also adds functional programs like the kitchen, archives, and recording rooms to the building. More permanent landscape like trees and impermanent movable furniture gets added to the site to allow for concurrent outdoor programming to occur. In phase 3, the final architectural addition, the community garage, is constructed, bringing the 3 architectural blocks with their different functions together under one roof. To complement this, work starts on the landscape with the addition of different ground covers and the other smaller objects on site. This is when the emerging artists take over the site to work on the different art objects that are embedded within the organizational structure set by the architecture. These art objects include murals that unify the building, the bird sculptures native to Zimbabwe looking over the site, the stage hidden in the landscape, the DJ booth that can be moved to different spaces based on the events on site, the fun towers on site which can function as a playground, watchtowers, and water storage tanks while also being markers in the urban landscape, a meandering Viacar track that can host parades for the people involved in the Viacar culture in Detroit, a double height gallery wall that displays the Viacars while also housing portals between the community garage and the public front, the lighting hut village that hosts the cafe and community lounge under artistic interpretations of the Zimbabwean huts, the gallery hut installation on the second floor that can be continuously reconstructed to display and showcase the techniques and materials used in the Zimbabwean culture. All these art objects activate the urban plan and are constantly changing based on funding and multiple project ideas brought by visiting artists and local residents, thereby making the cultural center always a work in progress. Here are some glimpses of the cultural center in plan. And section. You can see here that the core functions efficiently and beautifully transitions between the vertically compressed public front and the double-height community garage. The landscape can be used to host outdoor events overflowing from the community garage. Within the cafe on the ground floor, the lighting huts create spaces of gathering through objects of appropriation. From the street, the building and the landscape work together to invite the visitors into the site and create spaces which allows the users to further define the program. And last but not the least, the community garage is a place for weekly braai and barbecues, workshops, dance parties, and other events. It is also a space that can be used throughout during the colder months as a winter garden and for additional programming. We would like to thank our community partners for all the site visits, conversations, for being open to all our ideas, and for giving us critical feedback that made us push the project further. We can't wait to see what the Zimbabwe Cultural Center of Detroit becomes, and we are looking forward to hanging out in the community garage and having a barbecue when it opens.
Thank you for those. Yay. Okay. So, to introduce the folks involved in this session, first we have Jessica Alley, who's the director of Shiloh. And this space that she has been running for some time now is extraordinary in its quality, its sensibility, and in the network of people that work with Jessica to make it a reality. So Jessica, I don't know if you're joined by anyone else from your team that you'd like to introduce?
Nope, you guys just got me today. I'm so sorry.
I just didn't want to miss anything.
No, I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us. And then we have Cheeto Johnson and the inimitable Gina Reichart in one frame. Representing the Zimbabwe Cultural Center project from the kind of network of projects actually that are adjacent to the Zimbabwe Cultural Center. Are you the two that are here from your team also? Anyone else?
Actually, well, I see that Alyssa Shelton is on the call, but it's a still picture, so maybe she's just listening. And then Namo, is Namo still on?
Namo came on. I'm trying to find Namo. Are you there? I am, Cheeto. Thanks. I'm here.
Hello.
That's part of the family too.
Yeah, there's overlap.
Yeah, there's the big Zimbabwe Cultural Center family. And we're also joined by, as you saw, Megan Finley, who presented the Shiloh project, and Maitreyi Chandra Sekar. I'm sorry for butchering. I'm sorry. We'll have to do a better job. And represent the Zimbabwe Cultural Center project, Madison Rogers and Abarami Manivanan.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. You know, in many ways, architects sometimes have a pang of jealousy for artists. They fancy artists as being able to produce more experimental, more exuberant, faster paced work than what our discipline sometimes allows us to do. I guess one question that we had is, how do we work with architecture? Or how did you find working with a team of architects? Did the process create enough space for your art practice to thrive and to find opportunities to evolve, emerge? How does architecture not squelch the pleasures of art practice or overburden it or overpower it? How do you get to that nice middle ground between those practices? And this is the blurring or the crossing line session. What's between architecture and art?
I know for me, I am not actually I do not self-identify as an artist. My background is in organizing. And I actually had a conversation recently with a friend who said, you know, organizing is an art form, so maybe you should think of yourself as an artist. But I say that to say, I have no clue about anything when it comes to architectural design. Yes, I can think creatively about various programs we should do in any given space, ways that we can, you know, engage the public at large. But when it comes to actually conceptualizing that space, I start to kind of hit a wall. And so it was so wonderful working with our team, just because they listened to us. They came back with, you know, really conscious and considerate modifications if we had it. You know, it was really important for us to make this building that was built in 1925 all body accessible. And so, you know, we were just like, I don't know how this is gonna happen. And next thing you know, they're presenting us this beautiful amphitheater that's still something that's really, really, you know, important to us and one of our favorite components. And so, yeah, I mean, just to answer your question, I think that for myself personally, I have other strengths. And so I think it's important to, knowing who I am as an individual, be able to lean into those things that I don't necessarily have, and how can I, you know, really give my community and the people around me an opportunity to show their strengths. And then we have something that we can build together or represent together.
Yeah, I mean, you know?
I'll just what Jessica said.
That was so good.
So good.
I'm not following that.
But I didn't write it all down. I was gonna word it word by word, except I guess I might have a different beginning intro, but almost there. I think I'll say it differently in terms of crossing the line. I think I'll think of more as less of a difference of the practice, but maybe a difference of how one uses languages. So as an artist, a visual artist, I am based on narratives. And I know a lot of visual artists who are not based on narratives, who are based more maybe on linguistics and aesthetics and, you know, the wonder of a plant rather than the identity of the plant. And I really admire them. And I think what's beautiful in terms of how Abby and Madison entered was was opened up less to do, like opened up not the restrictions or the narratives. So it was less to do with architecture, but also perspective. But of course, I mean, it was, you know, a building can be quite overwhelming, and having them come up, I loved, there's so many elements of it that opened up that I wasn't even imagining. And that was really exciting to see. But I also second Abby, I'm just waiting for that barbecue, you know, back there. So yeah.
I think for us, like sometimes the scale is the issue. Like we're in the sense of distance, like we're so close to some of these things. I mean, you're so close to like the inner workings in the group of CCCD, and I think for this project, I'm more like wearing a developer hat, so I'm really bogged down in the practicality of the pragmatics. So to have fresh eyes come in and sort of translate some of the ideas and go beyond sort of where we were tunnel visioning, just the realities of like water in the basement that we couldn't get past. And this team really just sort of went in directions that I don't think we could have, because we're a little too close to, we're like too close to it. Or, you know, like we're able to think in these moments, but to have something like translate those moments into something that is more comprehensive and more, I mean, also the team really looked closely at the way we do work as artists and the way we even talked about money and talked about the reality of having to fund this. And really broke it down into like the shell, the addition, made space in the process for artists to be part of the team that builds the thing, and didn't treat the art and the artist as something separate or applied. I mean, to me, that was a really great moment that we can move forward with.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead, Chico.
You go first. I didn't say
well, no, just to kind of piggyback off of what Gina just mentioned about, you know, being able to have conversations realistically about money and like funding and like where we're all at. I mean, like, I'm not going to talk about the state of Shiloh right now, but like the fact that we were able to have conversation even just about like materials and having steel beams versus timber beams. And like, we were able to go to them and say, can you maybe give us like an estimate on like what the difference is? Because like visually, I think steel beams would be beautiful. And they're just like, yeah, but it's going to cost a lot of money. So, you know, I guess I just appreciated like that factor actually. Because I think also you just don't really have a clue. It's like, yeah, we can do everything. And then it's like, actually, you shouldn't, because you don't have any money.
The power of being the downer on financials. That's part of your responsibility. I'm wondering if the students, Abby, Madison, Mitre, yeah, you have one more. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted another observation was we are in a turning point, and yeah, you know, socially, culturally, all those embedded, and one of them is the epidemic. And I really loved how you as a team, Abby and Madison, you really imagine the flow, small things like the flow of air and opening up a space, which there those realities that we also have to deal with. It's a very new phenomenon now that we're dealing with. So I'm sure it took a lot of research.
I appreciate that, Chito. If I could turn it to the students, and what's particular about these two projects is they don't just make space for performance or art practice, they integrate it into the thinking of the architecture itself. And if you could just provide a little commentary about that strategy from both projects, that would be great.
Yeah, I can speak for Shiloh about this. So when we were working on this project, to be honest, like initially we couldn't get away from like the spatial aspect of how we dealt with a really old building, which was a beautiful building, and like how we wanted to deal with light and the experience of it. And I think like where we kind of like, we realized that we had to be mindful of the fact that there are going to be artists working here, and what is the kind of logistics that's required for them to kind of to enjoy their work and do their work, apart from like the spatial aspect of it. So I think like that's one really, like as a team, it was a realization that we had, that apart from like this wonderful experience of a building, of the architecture, like we had to step into the shoes of an artist and kind of imagine like how much storage do they need? Like if you have an exhibition, how would they kind of make it like really adaptable to different kinds of artwork? So I feel like that was really, that was like my major takeaway from this project.
I think with the Zimbabwe Cultural Center, we had a similar experience where we went in looking at the spatial changes that we could make. But then the more we learned about like the funding and what the project needs, and like how the whole cultural center is a portal between here and Zimbabwe, and the number of artists who come through the portal each year, I think we started looking at the architecture and the space as a framework or a medium for all of the other programming and like the artistic changes to happen. And I think personally for me, it was a very humbling like lesson to like accept that architecture can take a backstage for all of the other things to shine, and like all the other elements could bring the place together and create programming. If Madison wants to add anything to that.
I would strongly second all those sentiments. Yeah, architecture doesn't have to be about ego. It can be about listening, and it can be about working with people who are invested, who have been invested for years, and who want to bring this to the next stage. And so we're just providing that framework for them to plug into. And like, yes, there were, you know, architecture being constructed, but that was really the background. It was really about creating places to showcase art and for it to be continually applied and reinvented. So it's not the architecture that you're looking at in the end, it's community, it's culture, it's this continuous artistic expression over time.
But in a really positive way, it also affected how we started thinking about the spaces, because we started thinking about surfaces and how all of those things can start functioning in the framework. So that influenced the way we designed those spaces and like the elements. So I think it was like a give and take. And another thing that like at least like I personally learned is or identified the gap between architecture and art. And this was just a beginning of how to try to fill the gap and like an experiment. And I'm looking forward to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. It allowed us to prioritize where we applied attention and therefore money. So it was definitely a good exercise to have done both personally and professionally.
So I wanted to thank everyone in this session. And as we turn to the next set of conversations and videos, I also wanted to give a shout out to Jean-Louis Farge, who's in the audience, who's very clearly like a silent mentor. He's there, but you know, doesn't say a lot, but really also inflects and influences these projects, and often steps up outside of normative institutional structures. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I was going to do that. He was so enthusiastic about the whole project, and every time we spoke to him, and he was there for like a few of the meetings. So thanks, Jean-Louis.
Okay, with that, thank you for speaking to us about these two projects. I encourage you, as they take shape in Detroit, to visit, and I'm sure we're all going to come to your barbecues. Beware. Okay, the next session, we're going to tee up Brilliant Detroit. If Ishan is ready.
Brilliant Detroit is a nonprofit organization dedicated to early childhood education in and around the Detroit area. The idea was to create a unique delivery model in early childhood development by using underutilized housing stock to create early child and family centers in neighborhoods. Today, in each location, neighbors come together for fellowship, activities, and learning through assure school readiness, and provide needed support for families. Our work with Brilliant was folded into two main objectives, one asking for design interventions in physical space, and another tasked with understanding the current virtual learning programs by Brilliant Detroit and their effectiveness. The IRL team was asked to survey existing Brilliant sites ready for partial reopening and to create a set of as-built drawings. With input from neighborhood managers from each site, members of the IRL team created plans depicting circulation strategies, designated emergency spaces, and calculated square footages in response to COVID reopening recommendations. As-built surveys and COVID reopening strategies were provided for 6 sites in total. In response to the ongoing pandemic, the IRL team created several iterations for future design proposals for 3 Brilliant sites. Our partners at Brilliant asked us to focus our attention on outdoor design strategies as a way to help them continue serving their communities by moving traditionally indoor activities outside. Each design proposal focuses heavily on outdoor spaces such as porches, side lots, and backyards. The virtual programming team conducted a series of intentional interviews with participant Brilliant Detroit families and staff members, which were designed to understand the current virtual learning programs by Brilliant and their effectiveness. The virtual programming team interviewed 4 Brilliant Detroit employees and 2 site-specific managers. Successful programs with maximum student engagement, as well as management issues like communication, scheduling, access, etc., were identified. The team also interviewed 6 participant families and children, and through the process learned about how families have responded to digital learning. It was identified that the participants missed socializing with other families outside of scheduled programming. From the data collected, it became clear that aspects of virtual programming needed attention. Issues of digital learning among young children, like screen fatigue, meeting logistics, communication, and tracking information, had to be addressed. As a result of the intentional interviews, the team considered several proposals to improve the virtual programming at Brilliant Detroit. Proposals included streamlining the web-based Google Calendar as a common resource for accessing program information, enabling attendance tracking for virtual programs, promoting casual virtual interaction, using Google Classrooms for a more streamlined virtual education, improving logistics of Zoom sessions through the assignment of moderators, conducting parent virtual training sessions, and introducing safe in-person programming.
Thank you so much for that. Again, difficult to move on to the next video, but Meals on Wheels is next. Excellent. Thank you for that. I wish there was like some way to do a real round of applause at the end of all of this work and all of these videos. I wanted to introduce Courtney Vanderlaan. Is Courtney in the room?
Yes, I am.
Hello, Courtney. Nice to meet you. You're from Ann Arbor's Meals on Wheels?
Correct.
Did you want to introduce a little bit about what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels is a Meals on Wheels program that's actually a part of Michigan Medicine. So our Meals on Wheels program is situated within the context of our health system here, which is pretty unique for Meals on Wheels. But we deliver prepared, healthy, nutritious meals to homebound members of our community who are homebound usually due to a health-related reason. So it could be physical health or mental health. But we are in a unique situation right now in that we typically deliver meals to our clients 6 days a week. We usually have about 100 volunteers that work with us every week to do that. And just like most organizations, our operations were completely flipped upside down with the onset of COVID. And so we ended up consolidating all of our meal deliveries into 3 days. So our clients are receiving the same number of meals each day, but we're doing it in 3 days rather than 6. So we're serving between 700 and 800 meals each of our delivery days to between 250 and 300 clients every day. So we were really grateful for our Taubman students who helped us work on a much needed project that we needed pre-COVID, but we especially needed in the midst of COVID, as we were trying to communicate consistent information to our volunteers about what to do if they arrived at the client's home, depending on the scenario that might play out while we're there. So if it's a regular delivery, a standard one, that's pretty status quo, but we serve primarily older adults. And because the folks that we serve have a health-related condition that contributes to them being homebound in order to be eligible for our services, it's not uncommon for our volunteers to arrive and have somebody have a medical emergency or seem disoriented. It doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly happens occasionally. And so we have been trying to brainstorm ways to equip our volunteers to know how to handle all of these different situations. But we did not have the staffing capacity or the artistic talent to be able to do something like that with our small team right now. So this project is very well timed and is going to be a huge tool for us. We had to take a break from onboarding new volunteers for several months because of COVID. And we actually just restarted our volunteer orientations a couple of weeks ago. So we plan on utilizing this tool immediately as we onboard new volunteers so that they can feel equipped and know exactly how to respond in all of these different situations.
Thank you for that introduction, Courtney. And thanks for the work that you do at this critical time. I wanted to pass the mic over to Emma Laut from Brilliant Detroit. And
hey.
A little bit to your project. It's super ambitious, and we'd like to know more.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Yep, my name's Emma, and I come from a really great team from Brilliant that just loved everyone that worked with us this summer. Brilliant Detroit is a nonprofit that renovates houses and turns them into community centers for kids and families ages 0 to 8. In this time of COVID, we have like totally flipped from doing our usual in-person programming, and this team was instrumental both in figuring out how we can do things safely outside, as well as figuring out how we can do our virtual programming better, which I really loved because I think the virtual programming piece especially was kind of fun because it was more of a design thinking approach, which I didn't know how a group of people that are studying architecture and whatnot would enjoy, but it seemed to be lots of fun. Yeah, so this team not only helped us get our sites on the map to do safe in-person programming, it also set the stage for us to, we've now pretty much opened all of our sites to be safely reopened, which is really exciting. I don't know how we could have done it without this team. As well as there were a few specific design projects that were kind of outside of COVID-ness that this group helped with, helping us create some really beautiful outdoor spaces to do the work that we strive to be, which is becoming incredible spaces of community and gathering within each neighborhood.
Some of the most incredible takeaways that have been shared across our organization is how everyone in these teams spent so much time just being really intentional and listening to our needs, which I just think is really remarkable, as well as incorporating it into the design in such a way that we could have never imagined. Since this summer, we've already been able to put a lot of these things to work. Our virtual programming, we have a few new people that have joined us to spend time with us this semester to implement some of those, the recommendations that came out of the study. And then for our sites are reopened. I think in being reopened, we really got put on the map for being able to do community programming, and since then we've partnered with the city of Detroit to do something really cool called Open Streets, where they're going to help us close down the streets and like do a lot more of that. And not only did we pull design from the plans that you all put together, but also again, you all helped to get us be on the map to know that we're capable of doing safe in-person programming outside. The last piece I would add is for the beautifully designed spaces that we're going to be beyond this. Having these designs helps make it real. And we're already starting to have conversation with funders and things, and having just like that visual, really intentional and almost magical, really, designs makes it makes this possible for us and makes us, you know, like our team just even more so wanting to figure out how to make it happen. So all in all, incredible work, really, really excited and just so grateful for each and every one of our people. It's so great to see everyone's faces again too. So yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much for those remarks and for explaining how some of this tracked and moved beyond questions of health-inflected planning to other aspects of design, space making, and recommendations for communication. I'd like to introduce the mentors that worked on these projects. Ana Morcillo Polaris is here. I can see you with the Jorge who left the frame. And Maria, oh no, he's in the frame. Okay, he's there. I was worried he went to get a job or something. Maria Arquero de Alarcon. And we also have Julia McMorrow, who's somewhere in this Zoom world. And the question that I have for you is that when we look at the outcomes of these projects, they really are at a high level of professionalism. And they look like something outside of the normative bounds of a studio environment, for example. And I'm wondering if you might help us understand how you inflected these projects or how you worked with students. Did you run an office? I mean, like when we look at the projects, it looks like, wow, oh my gosh, it's a lot of work that was produced in 6 weeks. It makes us want to extend the program and give people more time to develop the work so that we're all under less pressure. But if you could comment a little bit on the working strategies with these teams, that would be really great.
I would like to jump into this question because I would like to highlight exactly that. I mean, the level of professionalism that the students have had. I mean, our role as a mentor has been really a very, 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 very small, very, very tiny supporting role. I mean, the student has really addressed, I mean, in our case, I mean, Brilliant Detroit was like a challenge. I mean, because of the diversity of sites, I mean, every single house has a very different existing condition. I mean, you have to get to know the context, you have to get to know the client. It's really, really complex for the short amount of time. I mean, we are only, I mean, few weeks in the middle of the summer. I mean, they vanish. I mean, it's really, so I was the first, I mean, be greatly surprised about the high level of dedication of the students. The students were our rock stars. I mean, they were really, really addressed. I mean, the program. I mean, they really have like a really great energy put in the project. Yeah. So we have very, very little to do with this. I mean.
I agree 100%. I have to say the students totally rock it.
but we have also to recognize that Emma is pretty amazing. So all the energy and all the incredible focus that you saw today has been in place in every single meeting, in every single visit. She even took on something that I thought it was amazing, just making a final debrief session so that she could learn on how this process had worked for the students. And the students also had an incredible opportunity to offer feedback. And I think this is just remarkable because, as Anna said, we were there almost like, hey guys, if you need something, we are here. But they were just crunking the work, they were organizing themselves. I have to say, the team is incredibly impressive and large. We have Max and Molly and Emily and Aham and Sojong and Charlene and Leah and Talia and Tori and Serena and Mitch, and this is just amazing. So literally, we would have not been able to, say anything more than thank you. Thank you to Emma and thank you to each one of you, because we have learned how incredibly ready you are for the profession, like right now. So more than anything else, I just want to thank everybody in the team because it was an incredible journey for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll speak for as the mentor for the Meals on Wheels team, exactly the same thing. I mean, it was the students who did absolutely everything. And I think it was this incredible synergy also with Courtney Vanderland, who's just everybody was incredibly supportive and enthusiastic. And I think that was, that made it. It came from a very honest place, I think, for everybody. To be honest, when Jacob asked me if I wanted to be part of this, I was super jealous. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do the thing. So I was really just like jealously watching from the sidelines. But, I think we had some conversations about what are effective ways to communicate graphically. And I think really it organically came from what the need was, what was possible. And Anya, I like that you used the word professionalism, because this was an incredibly professional team. And I think it really illustrated how professionalism doesn't have to mean impersonal or not compassionate or indifferent. And I think they constantly delivered the goods with no budget and very little time and with just ultimate enthusiasm. So I think the other thing, just because the scale of the project is seemingly small, some pieces of paper printed, I think it's sort of inversely proportional to the impact it can have, that it can be such an immediate product that can really proliferate and sort of reach a lot, sort of scale up in a lot of ways, I think, with making people comfortable and communicating effectively. So yeah, just like an amazing team, Tori and Madison and Yushin and Peter are really great. So I was thrilled to be part of it.
Appreciate that. I wonder also, we have students, Talia Moretti and Mitch Deans, who worked on the Brilliant Detroit project, and Tori Smith is here as well, who worked on Meals on Wheels. If I could start with a question for Mitch and Tori, who are part of the Design Justice Action Group and who have been working on questions of how to infuse issues of community engagement into our curriculum. I wonder if Mitch and Tori, as you worked this summer on this experimental program and simultaneously organized students and faculty to discuss and consider questions of the role of community engagement in education, were there productive overlaps?
Yeah. Mitch, you can go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, obviously, Anya, thanks for teeing this up. I feel that there are obviously a lot of overlaps and a lot of parallels with what we're kind of trying to do in Design Justice Actions, which is engage community members through design. And I think that the Design Corps is the perfect platform for that, to get the conversation started and to actually like formulate some of those relationships. So I think this was a really fruitful summer, and I know that on both teams, Meals on Wheels and Brilliant, and the other teams, I think everyone really appreciated the opportunity to get to work on projects that they really cared about, and with people in the community who really appreciated and needed design services. So I think this definitely is something that falls into the actions, and then this is something we want to continue on, definitely.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Tori was saying, I mean, this was just a perfect example of the kind of thing that I think, we could really use a lot more of in Taubman College. I think it's, yeah, I say this all the time, but architectural education can be very insular, and at the end of the day, architecture is really about working with a lot of people, like a crazy amount of people, and learning how to do that is extremely important. I think it's humbling for us as designers too, which I think is extremely important. So yeah, this was an excellent opportunity to really kind of get an idea of, what does it mean to collaborate with communities? Yeah.
And Talia Moretti, I think you're here too. I'm wondering, this working with very large groups of people. I mean, Brilliant Detroit, y'all outdid yourselves in terms of a team, a scale of a team. I've never seen that many students work together in studio, for sure. If you could comment a little bit on how the organization took place and how you survived it and were so productive without a clear, hierarchy necessarily that comes from top-down instruction.
We did honestly create sort of a hierarchy. So we selected somebody to be the sort of project manager and have that as their main role. And we shifted that over the course of the project. So it started out as Mitch, and then we switched partway through. And because there's so many houses for Brilliant Detroit, like there's 8 of them, and we just started by focusing on 3. But so people who are in the Detroit and Ann Arbor area were chosen to be the sort of like in real life team. And then those of us who were located elsewhere, like I was in Canada for the whole summer, so I was on the virtual team conducting interviews with different people who are part of the community as well as staff for Brilliant Detroit. And it just sort of seamlessly divided up that way. There was enough people who were nearby that could do all of the in real life, going and doing site visits and taking measurements and then creating as-built drawings. And then all of us who were located elsewhere who wasn't convenient or possible for us to be at the locations, that we could conduct all of these interviews and sort of establish ways to improve the virtual learning. But yeah, I think the best part of it, or most important, was just dividing into smaller teams, made it a lot more manageable. I think if we had 10 of us approaching one goal at the same time, it wouldn't have been as effective.
Self-managed hierarchy. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we're getting to the end of our conversation, and it's been very inspiring and very touching to see the amount of work that has gone into the summer, and the amount of self-initiative that went into it, self-motivation, the input that we received from our community partners. We're looking for ways to extend this program, and if we can continue working in productive ways between our emergent designers and you, and also to find a way to support this process going forward, so that it's not quite as self-managed and self-rigged and scurried and hurried as it was last summer. So hopefully there will be opportunities to support this work in meaningful ways going forward. But in our last few minutes, I just wanted to open up this chaotic free-for-all where there is no hierarchy and everyone is in a small box. If there's anything that we need to share out before we end this session about this experience, or about an aspiration toward the form that it might take going forward, I just wanted to open up the floor. Hopefully no crickets, but if there are, then it's time to have an evening drink. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll just take a quick moment to say too, like, I think half the battle of this even succeeding was just having good partners for this. People, I mean, talk about people that really do truly understand their neighborhoods. I mean, like for an example, when we were doing an as-built measurement, I remember I went in and one of the people working for the nonprofit location, we were there 6 or 7 hours measuring this building, and literally the whole time we were there, this woman was just calling person after person after person after person. I mean, we were so very lucky to have worked with the partners we had, because we really wouldn't have, in a time like this in COVID, we wouldn't have had the connections and really the knowledge of all the people that were involved in these places without them. So just props to them for that.
Yeah, I think this was really insightful. As a student entering into my thesis, this really helps me to situate exactly who I'm designing for and what I'm doing it for. And I feel like this moment in my education is like, it provided like that necessary clarity of reminder of like how I got here, why I'm here, and why I'm doing this. So I think for personal reasons of aspirations, just for students too, it's extremely helpful and clarifying in that way.
Hi Anya, it's Sean Paul here. I have a question. What's the future of this program?
So here's my instinct, but you know, I don't make all the decisions, but I think we need to find resources for this program so that it can move forward and it can provide honorariums for people who are involved in it, some support. I think it's best when this program is not a course, but when it's a learning opportunity, but also one that takes into account the amount of work that goes into producing these kinds of projects. So I think, you know, from my perspective, moving forward, it's going to be a challenge and one that I'm eager to take on to find support for creating a framework that would offset the time and the cost of participating in this, both for students and mentors, and find ways to make this possible. So I think, you know, on a volunteer basis, we, as a collective, I think we really stepped up and did an incredible job making something with purely sweat equity and collaboration. In the future, for this to be sustainable, there will need to be additional support, in my opinion. So that's my hope for it.
I just want to, just a quick, or Ishan, do you want to respond?
I just want to say thank you. That's all.
Okay. I just wanted to say, like the amount of work and the quality of work is astounding. And I've had the opportunity, I'm going to put it in the chat again, to just kind of comb through the work in more depth, which 2-minute video or 3-minute videos, of course, cannot begin to explain. So I would really encourage everyone to check out the work on the website. And it just, the kind of political thrust over the summer has been very intense, and there have been many intense group meetings with all of us as little rectangles. And I feel like really excited about this as one, like to Anya's question about like, is this starting anyway to satisfy DJA's like desires and like what seems to be like a big part of the student body's desire, and to see the students working like so tirelessly, and that being evident with the things that they're producing, and seeing where those are evolving toward. Like these projects are not dead here, you know, by no means, if they're growing, you know. So just super like proud and like amazed at the amount of effort and number of people who stepped up. So like, bravo, congrats to everyone. It's really a pleasure to do this and see everybody's work.
What can you say after that? Not so much. So I hope we'll stick together through this and continue supporting each other in meaningful ways. And thank you all for taking part. Bye.
Thank you, guys.